Here's a stat that surprised me. QA teams spend 40% of their time just maintaining tests, not writing new ones, not catching bugs, just fixing tests that broke because someone renamed a button. And here's the thing, this isn't a people problem, it's an architecture problem. The way we have been building test automation for the last 15 years is fundamentally brittle, and most teams don't even realize there is another way. So in this video, I'll break down how traditional test automation works, why it breaks so often, and what changes when you build a testing agent around an LLM from the ground up. Not AI as a feature, but AI as the foundation. Let's get into it. At its core, test automation is about replacing manual testing with code. Instead of a human clicking through your app to verify that checkout works, you write a script that does it automatically. Click this button, fill this form, assert that the confirmation page shows up. The goal is simple. Run these tests on every build, every pull request, every deployment. Catch regressions before they hit production. Now, the most common way to create automated tests is record-playback. You open a tool like Selenium IDE or Catalan, click record, and then manually walk through your app. Add item to cart, click checkout, enter payment details, submit. The tool watches everything you do and generates a script. Sounds great, right? You don't need to write code, just click around and you have a test. But here is what's actually happening under the hood. Every time you click something, the tool needs to identify that element. It does this using locators. Now, a locator is just a way to identify an element on the page. It could be an ID, a CSS selector, an XPath, a class name. So when you click the checkout button, the tool might record something like click element with ID checkout BTN or click element matching path XPath so and so. Now, your test is essentially a list of instructions tied to a specific locator. Click button with ID checkout button, fill input with name email, click element with XPath, so on and so forth. And this is where things start to break. Let's say a developer refactors the checkout page. They rename checkout button to BTN checkout. Or they change the div structure so your XPath no longer matches. Or they swap a button for an anchor tag. Your test fails not because the functionality broke. The checkout still works perfectly, but because the locator can't find the element anymore. And this is what I mean by tight coupling. Your test isn't actually testing, can a user complete checkout? It's testing, does an element with ID checkout BTN exist in the exact location? And those are very different things. Now multiply this by hundreds of tests. Every sprint, the UI changes. Every UI changes breaks a handful of tests. And your QA team spends Monday fixing tests that broke over the weekend. And this is why that 40% stat exists. You build automation to save time. And then you spend all your time maintaining the automation. Now, experienced automation engineer do know some tricks to reduce this pain. Instead of hard-coding locators everywhere, you centralize them. You create a page object for each page of your app. All locators live there. When something changes, you just go and update one file instead of 50 tests. And this helps, but you're still storing locators. You have just organized them better. Some teams add special attributes to elements just for testing. So instead of relying on IDs or classes that developers might change, you add data test ID checkout button and you have a rule, developers don't touch these test IDs. This also helps, but it requires discipline across the team, and it pollutes your production HTML with test-specific attributes. Now, a lot of flaky tests happen because the test runs faster than the app. You click a button before it's loaded. You assert a value before the API returns. So you add waits. Wait for element to be visible. Wait for network to be idle. Better, but now your tests are slower, and you are still guessing how long to wait. All of these are good practices. I'm not saying don't use them, but notice what they have in common. They are all working around the same core problem. Your tests are tightly coupled to implementation details. You're still saying, click this specific element. You have just gotten better at managing which specific element you are clicking. What if the test didn't need to know about the elements at all? Let me give you an analogy. Think about how GPS navigation works. You tell it your destination. Take me to the airport. You don't say, turn left on Main Street, then turn right on Oak Avenue, and then left at the third light. Why? Because if there is a traffic on Oak Avenue, or if the road is closed, those instructions break. But take me to the airport still works. The GPS reroutes. That's the difference between storing implementation and storing intent. Traditional test automation stores implementation. Click this button, fill this field, check this element. What if you could store intent instead? Log in as a test user, add the first product to cart, complete checkout with a credit card. If the UI changes, the test doesn't break. It just figures out the new way to achieve the same intent, like a GPS rerouting. This is the mental shift, and this is what becomes possible when you have an LLM that can understand what you meant and figure out how to do it. This brings us to KaneAI. Now, I want to be precise here because there's a lot of AI-powered testing tools out there. Most of them take the traditional record playback approach and add a chat interface on top. You can ask it questions, you can generate some boilerplate, but under the hood, you are still storing locators. KaneAI is architecturally different. It's what I call Gen AI native. The LLM isn't just a helper. The LLM is the test engine. Let me explain what that means. So when you write a test in KaneAI, you describe intent in natural language. Log in with username himalay@bytemonk.io and password subscribe123. Navigate to the production page, add the first item to cart, go to checkout. The agent reads that, looks at your application, and figures out how to execute each step. It's not recording locators, it's reasoning about what elements map to what intent. And this is where it gets interesting. So let's say you wrote that test last week. Today, the dev team shipped a redesign. The login form looks different. The button text changed from sign in to say login. And the CSS classes are completely new. A traditional test breaks immediately. The locator can't find the old element. KaneAI re-reasons from your original intent. Login still means find the username field, the password field, and the submit button. The agent looks at the new UI, identifies which element matched that intent, and executes the test. That's auto-healing. But it's not pattern matching or fuzzy locator matching. It's reinterpreting intent against a changed UI. This is only possible because the LLM is the engine, not a feature. Alright, let me show you this in action. I'm going to type a simple instruction. Go to Amazon India, search for MacBook Pro M5, add it to cart, and proceed to checkout. That's it. Plain English, no selectors, no XPath, no element IDs. Now watch what KaneAI does with this. It breaks down my intent into steps. Open Amazon, search for the product, click add to cart, go to cart, proceed to buy. I didn't tell it which button to click or what CSS class to look for. It figured that out by understanding what I meant. And there it is, redirected to the sign-in page, exactly what you would expect when trying to check out without logging in. The point here is simple. I described what I wanted to test in plain English. The agent reasoned through the UI and executed each step. No locators, no brittle selectors, just my intent. But here is the real question. What happens when the UI changes? That's where auto-healing comes in. Here's a sample e-commerce site. The dev team made some UI changes. That back to products button, completely different element now. We ran this test scenario across Linux, Mac, and Windows 11. The logs show it clicked through the initial steps just fine. But when it hit back to products, couldn't find the element. Watch what happens. It tries the fallback locators, and those fail too, because the element was completely changed. Then auto-healing kicks in. New XPath generated on the fly. Element found, test passes. You can see it in the automation video. Clicks the product, select size, add to cart, and right here, the back to products button is the new one. Notice the retry. Fallbacks failing. And then auto heal succeeds. That's intent-based testing. It doesn't break when the UI changes. It adapts. Now, everything I just showed can be exported to real code. Python, Java, JavaScript, Playwright, Cypress, whatever framework your team uses. The AI writes it, you own the code, no vendor lock-in. It also does API testing. Point it at your API spec and it figures out what valid responses should look like. You don't have to manually write assertions for every endpoint. One thing I found clever is the GitHub integration. When a PR lands, it looks at what changed and suggests tests for that specific change. So your test coverage stays in sync with your code base. And it catches bugs while you are still writing the test, not after. You're describing a flow and it's already running and validating in real time. Look, test automation isn't going away. If anything, teams are writing more tests, shipping faster, and expecting everything to just work. The problem is, the way we have been doing it for the last 15 years doesn't scale. You end up with a test suite that's more liability than asset. The shift to intent-based testing fixes that at the architecture level. You stop babysitting locators and start focusing on what actually matters. KaneAI is one of the first tools I've seen that build this way from the ground up. It's by Lambda Test, link in the description if you want to try it. Alright, that's it for this one. See you in the next.